I'm an architect, and my specialty is natural building. I do a lot of different types of projects, but I average about one straw bale building a year, although it has been ramping up lately, which is great. But to qualify the workshop, I am not a professional plasterer. I have experienced it in my life. I plastered my own house. I've attended a lot of workshops and things, but I am by no means doing this every day. And I just wanted to let you know that. I know about it, I understand it, I have done it, but a professional doing this, I am not. So take this with a grain of salt. Lime plaster, which is what we're working with today, is a field that is deep and old and wide. It is a plaster that is used worldwide and throughout history. And where you can take it and how the forms of it appear, it's amazing. It's a vast, vast field. Today's workshop, you will see the opening sentence of the first paragraph of an introduction to what lime plaster is, just barely touching the surface, because there's so much more to learn. I hope you find it interesting and insightful, and that it sparks more curiosity. If it does, go seek out professional plasterers, take their workshops. I have studied with Athena and Bill Steen and Benito, their son, at Canelo in Arizona. That's primarily where I learned plastering, and I consider them to be preeminent American plasterers, if not worldwide. And after I attended a workshop with them doing advanced plaster techniques last year, and after a week of work, I felt like a baby plasterer. There's so much more to learn. And even the professionals, Athena and Bill, went to Japan last year to study with Japanese artisans as well. You continue learning this skill for a lifetime. But that being said, it is one of those materials that a beginner can approach and start to work with and achieve a final finish without a lot of beginning experience. You can get a product that works for your building if you're doing it. You can learn how to do it. It takes time to get really good and take it into an art form, but it's a very approachable and workable material. It's a very friendly material if you're just starting out. So it's an exciting material to work with, and I love it. But caveat, I'm not a pro. I've done it, but it can go really deep if you get interested in it, and I hope you do. And I recommend, visiting the Canelo if you have a chance to study with them. They're probably the best at lime plastering and plastering in general. Why would we want to use lime? What is the benefit of it? It is a tried and true finish material. The oldest lime plaster that archaeologists have ever discovered that's still on a wall in the world is 9,000 years old. Does it last? Oh, heck yeah, it lasts. It's also a very flexible material. You can use it for a lot of different projects. You can put it on rock, you can put it on clay, you can put it on wood, you can put it on whatever substrate you want. You can build sculptures with it. It's a malleable and adaptable material. Obviously, it stands the test of time. Another important feature is that it creates fireproofing. So these walls, by code today, are considered 2-hour fire-rated masonry construction. So it creates a lot safer building. You can get lower insurance rates because your structure is 2-hour fire-rated. There was a fire in London in 1212, and London Bridge burned down. After that happened, the king mandated that in the area, all the buildings were to be finished with lime plaster inside and out to prevent further fire damage from occurring. So it's proven itself time and time again as long-lasting and fireproof. The other great thing for me and in what I do is it's a great adaptable material for using with natural building. Lime plaster is considered a natural material, and because of the properties that it has, it really works with clay plaster as well and straw bale because it's breathable, it's adaptable, and it's easy to apply for homeowners. So it works great in the natural building realm. Finally, I find it beautiful and aesthetic. So strength, function, beauty. Performs, it's beautiful, it works. What is it? What is lime? It's basically calcium carbonate. You know that stuff, that white stuff that gets stuck in your bathtub if you have really hard water, you gotta scrape it off? That's calcium carbonate. It's also occurring in pearls, corals, seashells, limestone, chalk, and marble, so to name a few examples. In our case, the plaster that we're using comes primarily from limestone. It's crushed up, it's heated in a kiln, and that forms something called quicklime. You take quicklime and you add water to it. And in some places in Europe, they're very lucky, you can buy quicklime paste already mixed, ready to go. You can mix it yourself, but it takes 3 months to 5 years to slake and prepare. So it's kind of a time-extensive process. Here in America, mostly what they do is they take the quicklime, they dehydrate it, and what we use is something called, right there, Type S Special Mason's Lime. And it's dehydrated lime plaster, and you just mix it with water, leave it sit for 10 or 15 minutes, and it's good to go. So do not use agricultural lime, do not use other types of lime. What you want for construction purposes is Type S Special Mason's Lime. Let's see. So we're going to talk a little bit. So how it's going to work, we're going to apply some plaster, and then we'll take a little break at maybe 2:15 for another little discussion and questions. We'll let it harden up a little bit, and then we'll come back and smooth it out. I did this a few minutes before the workshop started, so I can demo what you do once it's on and it's started to harden a little bit. So it's almost there. So the next part of this, I'm going to demonstrate just applying it to the wall. And then after you practice that for a little bit, like at 2:15 we'll stop. You can tour around a little bit. We can have questions. We can talk about natural building or some other things if you want. Go more deep into lime. And then we'll come back 15 or 20 minutes later and you'll practice creating the finish surface on it.
Is there a ratio of water to
Yes.
lime?
So in this case, when we're mixing, and when you mix, lime is a dangerous, hazardous material. When you mix it, which I'm not going to, we can demonstrate that, but I don't really want to have a lot of people mixing it because you really do need to wear eye protection, goggles, and face mask because it's not good to get it into your pores or your eyes. The ratio that we're using here, which is 1 bag of sand, 2 buckets of lime, and 2 buckets of water. And what is that? That is about 2 to 3 sand to 1 part lime to 1 part water. And you can take it from that 2 to 3 parts, that's probably the maximum of sand, all the way down to lime and water only. So you can create whatever kind of material that you want. More sand equals a thicker coat. So with the mix that we have here, which is about double sand to lime ratio, you can go up to maybe 1/2 inch. If you want a thinner veneer, and in the fine work, you start off with a thicker veneer and you work your way down, reducing the quantity of sand and getting finer and finer with your finish.
That makes sense.
So that opens it up to personal preference and how you
Mixed to
work.
taste, right?
Yes, you can mix it to taste. And also when you're applying it, there's preferred application methods that are tried and true that work, but there's a lot of options. Work with your body, what you're capable of. I have, wrist issues, so I tend to like to use my whole body, my whole arm, and my legs to help me plaster, because otherwise you will get a lot of fatigue if you do many, many square feet of building. So, practice it, try it out. This is what we're here to do today, to experiment a little bit, see how it feels. And the nice thing about it is you can really make this work no matter how it gets on the wall. There's 3 main techniques. You can apply it with a trowel, something like this. You can apply it by hand, which is the more traditional way. And another traditional way that they use often in England is something called hurling, where they fling it on the wall in blobs. It actually produces a beautiful grainy surface that's very hard wearing. And I just fling it on with these special trowels that look like, I don't know.
Sounds like a party.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's very messy. I wouldn't want to try that indoors. I've never done it, so I don't know. But, you know, however you can get it to stick on the wall, you're good to go. And then you knock back. And there's also many ways to finish it to create different effects. In this case, we're finishing it with kind of a firm trowel and just getting rid of the edges. There's two primary components. You've got the edges and the trowel marks, and you've got the texture. And in this case, we're aiming for a most smooth texture. When we get to the outside, we'll finish it a little bit differently. We'll use sponges and we'll have a more sandy texture. But in most cases, people want to kind of eliminate the trowel marks as much as possible. And we don't have a completely smooth wall. If you're wanting to put it on a very smooth thing, you can get it absolutely perfectly smooth. But we like the contours and how it looks here. So yes, the other thing is work clean. Since this is finish work, everything should stay clean. I don't know whoever was here working on this, we got real messy. When you're doing finish work, you want to stay clean, you want your tools to be clean, you want to constantly have water handy to wash things up. And the things that I like to use, this is called a hawk. And we have a different style of one, but I prefer this. For me, it's a little bit more comfortable because I can rest it on my arm. It's not so heavy versus the ones that you kind of have to hold this way. And then this is a Japanese trowel. Again, I prefer the Japanese style trowels because I have smaller hands. They're much more comfortable for me to grip. And I like the control of a smaller one. You can even get smaller ones and smaller ones for doing baby work. So like I said, this is almost ready to finish, so I'll demonstrate putting it on and then I'll show you a few techniques for working on this. So we have our plaster mix here already prepped. Drop some of that on here. And I like to play with it a little bit just to make sure it's all consistent. Make sure my trowel is good and clean, ready to go. Make it into kind of a loaf, break off a piece, grab that on my trowel, and again, I'm going to use my legs. I'm going to apply it at an angle, pushing up and compressing it into the wall. And you can hold your hawk below it to catch any drips. It is messy. If it falls on the floor, it stays on the floor. Do not pick it up. This is finish work. We want to keep it clean. So again, at an angle, some pressure, and push that in. Grab it, push with your legs, and grind that in. What you want to avoid is playing with it. You want to get it in there. You want to get it nice. And sometimes you can give it a little wiggle to get it started. And there's a spot that's a low spot. Clean off my trowel, grab some more, and fill in there. So if you're kind of a beginner, you can shove it off here, but if you learn how to flick it onto your trowel, it's a lot easier and more manageable. What you want to avoid is if I put some here, coming over my other work and noodling it. As soon as you're doing this, you stroke it more than 3 times, you're compromising the finish. You just want to get it on and leave it, at least initially. There is a little section here that's a lot rougher that I applied by hand. And it's kind of the same movement, that angle, and move it up and apply it with your hand. So that kind of creates a different texture initially. But when we smooth it, and it's harder to control the thickness versus the trowel. So if you can get used to working with the trowel, and like I say, we're not flinging it because I don't want to make that kind of a mess.
Is there a specific thickness that you're shooting for?
So here we want something in the range of 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch. because of the content of sand that we have, we can do that. And we want to level it a little bit as it's going on, but not, you know, not worry about it too much. Mostly we just want to get a nice application, hit it once or twice, leave it alone.
So then there's a following coat or following something different.
Yeah. So let me just get rid of this, and then I'll show you what we're doing next. Because I put this on before you guys came to let it harden up so I could show you how to finish that. And if we were being smart about it and strategic about it, we'd start at the top and work our way down so that you don't mess up the work below. But, you know, like I said, it's a really adaptable. But you don't want to come in and be like petting it. Don't pet it.
So like that where you have an overlap on the left side, you don't try to...
Not yet.
No, above, yeah, where the two left. Left.
Here.
Yeah, this.
This.
You have that overlap. You don't try to...
You can hit it a little bit, but you want to avoid knocking it back too much. So, and well, the other thing is, it's nice if it's having a hard time applying, because I'm pretty good at applying. You can just miss the wall a little bit, and it'll help grip it. So now we have this thing. It's firm, but it's not dry, and we can come in with. In this case, this is a plastic Japanese trowel, and it's very flexible. You can use something like a yogurt lid, cut with the edges cut off. And what we want to do with this is now we're taking those edges off. And we can play with it a little bit more at this stage because it's adhered and get it.
An hour later?
20 minutes at least, but you can come hit it. You just have to really see what the level is, and if it's a little too firm, give it a little mist. The nice thing about working with this versus concrete is that concrete dries up and then you're done. And if you don't catch it, that's it. You can always come in and work this. And primarily what I want to do is close that surface down and smooth out the ridges. I want to knock that sand and push that sand, give that sand compression into the plaster so that we're creating a finish with more smoothness in terms of texture. And if you're not as strong, you can also use extra pressure. And especially if you have a very irregular wall, you can really control the pressure. And it's nice to actually work with the yogurt lids because you can get into some kind of smaller areas and really smooth it out. So that is one technique. The other technique that is used, so this smoothing is only good for interior applications because on the exterior you want it to be a little more sandy. And in that case we just use a sponge and kind of rub it. And what this does is it actually brings some of the sand more to the surface. So we're creating a surface that's a little more sandy, which isn't what we wanted so much in the interior because we don't want to have sand falling off, but it does make a better, harder wearing exterior. So then you just kind of smooth it around, and that's how you'd create your exterior finish. Finishing on the exterior is actually a little easier with the sponges. And for example, my house, I have the sponge finish, both the interior and outside. It was just a little easier to get more consistent. But in the case of this building, because it's commercial use, we'll have a lot of traffic, it's nicer to have that kind of smooth finish. So those are really two main finishing techniques for just creating this. And you can come back and work on this a lot more once it's dry. When you're putting it on, you just want, and here's the part where I hand did. And you just come in and do that same process of closing it off and smoothing it out. Unfortunately, we do not have a lot of the smooth trowels here that are smaller because the crew is used to working with masonry tools, and these are kind of specialty items, but I recommend that if you do it on your own, you get some. These are my personal tools, and I have an attachment to them. But the artistry that you can do and what you can create with this is outstanding. So I would say, let's spread out the buckets and questions.
So if you were to put some sort of like artistic texture or three-dimensional thing, like when would you do that?
So there's actually a lot that you can do. You can mold lime into forms. You can sculpt it out and build it out. If you want to go thicker than the 1/2 inch that you can maybe get with this, you add some fiber to it. You don't usually want fiber on the final finish, but you can have it if you want to see it. So some people like to put little fine bits of straw in the final finish, sponge it down, and you can see the little sparkle of the straw in it. You can put mica in it and different things. But you can sculpt, and actually you can sculpt out quite far. It'll support it. It's better to use the clay plaster for making your sculpture and then come back and hit it with this. The other technique, which I love, is that you put several thin veneers on and change the color between them. Then you come back in and carve different levels to create relief with color. You can also put color into the final mix that you use. If you do that, make sure that you're getting pigment that works with alkaline. This is very, very alkaline, which is why in the tools category, we have vinegar. Because if you get some on your skin, put some vinegar into here and you dip your hands in there and it'll neutralize it. But it's like the best cure for dry hands for working with plaster. Do not clean your tools with that. This is strictly for skin purposes. So yeah, you can color it. You can put mica flakes in. You can put marble. You can use different color sand. In this case, we're using white sand, white fine sand. You can use marble dust. The sky's the limit. You can fresco on it. You can use clay-based or lime washes and natural wheat paste paints. So endless variety and possibility. The other way you can finish it is with, and these were made by Benito Steen, actually. These are some of his finishing tools, and these you can just make. These are wood trowels, and these are for working in the very small areas and also for finishing. And when you finish with these, it creates kind of the same surface with the wood as the sponge does. So there's a lot of different trowels and things that you can use, but these little babies are perfect for getting in the niches and doing small spaces or where you have corners and different things.
How long after you put that coat on and then you put the finishing coat over it, how long do you have between, like you said, you wait for the dry an hour? What if you waited 2 days? Do you come back and finish it then?
1 day, yes. 2 days. It depends. It really depends on the humidity. If you keep your room quite humid or you come and mist it, yeah, you can extend that for a couple of days.
Oh.
But you've got to come back in and mist it and make sure it's not drying too fast. Actually, if you extend it and you let it dry slowly, you get a harder wearing plaster. The one downside with working with this material is that it has to be applied in conditions where it's not too hot, not too cold, not too dry, and not too humid. It needs a little bit of babying, and it does take a little bit of time. But the great thing is if it hardens up and you miss that window, you can come in and do another thin layer over it and blend it in. It's really easy to work with if you make a mistake. It's very easy and adaptable to work with. So it's perfect for novices to start with. And then you can take it into artistic sky's the limit.
What is too hot or too cold?
It won't start setting up if it's colder than 45. And if it's below freezing, it won't cure at all. and you'll have a mess on your hands, which is why. And it has to be above freezing for at least a week. With the clay, if you use this finish, it's a month. It needs a month. And slowly over time, it reverts back into limestone. So in 10 years, it will be limestone on your wall. Very, very hard-wearing surface.
How about when it's too hot?
I don't know. I mean, like in Arizona, we work and it's very, very hot, and they always have to spritz it. But, you know, I could work. We were working in like 90-degree weather, so I think here, any time in the summer is probably fine. It's better when it's humid too. A little bit of humidity, but not too much. It's like the Goldilocks of materials. But okay, without further ado, unless anybody else have questions.
Grabbing a ladder from someone?
No, we can just start here at the level, and you must wear gloves with this because it is caustic, and we have gloves. And don't overload it too much. You want to just have enough that you can manage.
Okay. Is this too much?
Nope, that's
Okay.
good.
Like that, and we'll just start with small amount for you.
And so only use this side to move
Yes,
it?
move it around with the top surface. Yeah. At an angle, pressure it in, and keep. Great. Yep, just like that. Don't noodle it too much. Don't just get it
You
up
said maybe twice.
and get it on.
Once or twice.
Yeah. No more than 3. Okay, so you want to hold it this way. So you want to scoop it up here. Yeah. Give you assist. Put it up against the wall. And you can start here. You can start with it. Yeah, like that. That's enough. Put this here, a little lower so you get yourself workspace. Come here and pressure it on and just glide it up. Like that. Yep. Over and over a million times. How was that? It's easy, but it's hard. It's easy, but it's hard. Yeah, it takes practice, and you can see how far you can take it. But it's also something you can get the hang of right away and learn enough to do a successful lime finish on your own project. It's that easy, but it's that deep, which is why I love it. So why would we use lime plaster versus cement plaster or other things? Both lime and cement-based or Portland-based cement are fireproof. They're both very hard-wearing. Lime has the advantage of having slightly more conductivity, so it feels warmer, and it also performs more similar to natural building materials. So when it expands and contracts, it's more similar to wood and the straw and the natural clay plaster. So you have less cracking issues than you would with a Portland cement. I have used Portland cement on straw bale houses before. It does work. It's a little bit harder to work with, and you don't have that workability and that ability to come in and correct things so easily. They are both temperature sensitive, although the lime does take longer to cure, so you have to have a larger window to work. So if that's a time constraint.
Why would people use the concrete versus the lime when we have limestone, you said, from 9,000 years ago?
Yeah, why would they use concrete? Yeah. Concrete industry? I don't know. I mean, it's, a lot of building techniques have fallen out because people lose interest in the traditional methods, and we always want the newest thing, the latest thing. That's how we get vinyl siding versus wood siding. I mean, there's shortcuts taken, and this is kind of a lost art that we're reviving, but it's never really went away. For natural building, the advantage is that the lime plaster breathes. Concrete can be used. It has some permeability, but not at the same level as the plaster. And even the conductivity, if you touch the plaster wall versus touching the concrete, you'll notice that it's a lot warmer. So it's a lot more comfortable surface than the concrete. The concrete does tend to feel really cold. And for beginners, it's very difficult to get a really good finish with concrete because it firms up so fast and it's not forgiving at all. You make a mistake, you let it dry too much, you're done. It's done. You can always come back from this. Lime also has less embodied energy than Portland-based cements, so we prefer it. Lime has more embodied energy than clay plasters, but clay plasters don't perform so well with harsh weathering. So what we've done here is the first coat, the scratch coat, is a clay-based paint or a clay-based plaster with a bit of lime in it, and then the finished is lime. So that's kind of the best balancing act to get good weatherability without as much embodied energy as if we were just using straight lime plaster.
Sorry, what's embodied energy?
Embodied energy is the energy it takes to make the product. Yeah. And also even shipping costs. So if you're buying a material from far away, that could be included in the energy that it is required to have that material. Both are pretty readily available.
Greenhouse gas emissions, are they included in the embodied energy?
No, that's something different. And the interesting thing about lime is when it starts drying, it pulls CO2 back into itself. When you form it, when you heat it up in a kiln, that CO2 is driven out. When it's curing, it keeps pulling CO2 back into itself, so it's actually sequestering carbon. It performs a lot differently than concrete also in the fact that it doesn't wick moisture into itself. So, when you're building, you have to always separate out concrete from other materials with some kind of barrier, because otherwise it will pull moisture into it. Lime does not do that. The other benefit of lime is because it's so alkaline, it has a very high pH, mold and mildew will not grow on lime plasters. So that's a huge benefit, and it makes for a very healthy environment. If you have a lime finish, you'll feel healthier and the air will feel cleaner because it's constantly, over its lifespan, hundreds of years, continually absorbing the CO2. Sometimes there's small cracks, they'll form, and then you'll notice it's gone. It's because the environment has absorbed some of that CO2 and sealed itself. Concrete can't do that.
Does it have similar strength as concrete? Or do you use it as flooring?
Yes, so the reason why we're using type S versus type N is that it's a stronger, higher strength lime plaster. So, but the benefit is that it's more flexible. So it doesn't have, if you have some expansion and contraction and some movement, it will tend to give a little bit more rather than cracking, because concrete is very strong, but it's very brittle. This is a little more give to it.
So you could use it as flooring?
You can. And you can also mix Portland into these mixes and have a combined mix. You can really experiment with a lot of different things with this. What else? Occasionally also with this, as with everything, you will want to do some maintenance on it. Every material really requires maintenance of some type. If you want to brighten it up, freshen it up, you can lime wash it and lime paint it. You can add subsequent layers of lime plaster to your heart's content. You're never done with it. It can always be worked on more if you want to. And that's the best way to freshen things up. There are a couple different kinds of things. Has anybody ever heard of Tadlac plaster before? Yeah. So Tadlac is a lime plaster technique that was from Morocco, and you can make shower enclosures with it. You can make sinks. You can make bathtubs with it. And what you do is you do the same thing that we did today, and then you subsequently add thinner layers that are just lime and water. When that is setting up, you put on, with a brush, olive oil soap, and it soaks into the surface while it's still drying. When it gets hard, then you start burnishing it with a stone. And you keep applying that olive oil soap until no more comes in, burnish it down with a stone, and you get a silky, smooth, absolutely water impervious finish. Incredible. And that's Tadlac. There's also something called Venetian plaster. Probably you've heard of that, and you see it a lot in Europe. And that is plaster. The only difference really is that it's made with very fine marble dust, so you can get incredibly smooth surfaces. And frequently Venetian plaster is what they use as a substrate for doing fresco work. So if you take pigment in a water-based medium and you have fresh lime curing, you can paint on it, and while it's drying, that pigment gets locked into the surface. So it's more than just a painting. It becomes part of that limestone surface. So you can color it with fresco techniques when it's still wet. You can also apply pigment into the plaster or with a lime wash to get color onto your surface. And you can blend things and make all kinds of spectacular effects with different kinds. The only caveat is that you must use pigment that is compatible with the alkaline medium that you're working with. So acidic-based pigments can't be used. They react with it. So if you want to try that out, make sure that when you're getting your pigment, it's okay to use with plaster.
Is this paintable?
It's paintable, but not with conventional paint. You cannot paint it with latex paint or oil paint, because what you're doing is you're then sealing the surface. And you never want to do that on a straw bale building, and it won't perform well on lime. You can use paint that you make with lime wash and water and pigment, and you can also make something called wheat paste paint, which is a natural paint that you can cook up at home and put pigment in and apply to the walls. So there is ways of getting color on it. Or you can use colored clays and create a plaster that's colored. Here we're using white, but you could use red sand, clay, different colors. You can even put mica flakes in it of different sizes and have it sparkle. All kinds of different things that you can add to it. But you must not paint it with latex paint. It just won't stick, and it just won't work. So that is one of the downsides, is you can't conventionally use paint. And then you can also use wax, beeswax, and other types of sealants to create different finishes, different textures, and more waterproof. But you don't need to put anything on it. This can just be as it is. It's really what your level of desire is for the surface, is where you can take it. Yeah, and it can be artistic and colorful and shaped and built out, and moldings. In a lot of traditional buildings, you'll see formed limestone or lime plastered cove moldings and details that you can carve or build up. So it's an amazing material for what it can do and what it can allow you. And then one thing else, I mentioned the Canelo project. If you're really interested to learn more about it, they are looking for somebody, it's in Arizona, for a 5-month post to work with them, and in exchange for living and food, and you can attend their workshops for free. It will include a plaster floor workshop, clay plaster floor workshop, as well as their other workshops. So if anybody's interested, just let me know. But they are really the best school that I've heard about and seen and worked with in America. Are there any other questions? Yes?
Can you use it for like a fireplace, since it's waterproof fireplace?
Yes.
Inside of
Yep. Oh, inside the fireplace? No, you can't use it inside the fireplace. I don't know. I know that they use this very special type of material that they use to do the inside, but you could certainly use it on the outside. But it's not something that would work for the inside. Although I have seen people make outdoor pizza ovens with it. So, but the balance and the ratio of how much clay and how much lime, I'm not sure about. So, more research would be needed. You could take it so many places, but I don't know the answer to that. So that is that. So we're gonna, yep.
You probably already mentioned this in the very beginning, but did you have to go to Arizona to get the guys to work here, or did you train them to do what is already done with the plaster?
So this is what's really exciting. I came one morning and we worked in that room over there, and I, worked with them for an hour or two. And then the crew, who'd never done this before, but who have experience doing parging and working with different materials and plaster, but have never worked with lime, this is what they learned in 2 weeks working on it. So it proves it's so adaptable to the novice, to the beginner. It's a material that everybody can approach and learn how to do. So we're going to go in and we're going to see.
I heard a rumor you have a book that is published soon?
Me, it's not close to publication. Yeah, I am working on a book, and yeah, don't remind me. I need to stop working as an architect so I can work as an author. But yeah, eventually, there are a lot of books on lime plastering, much more about lime plastering because it has such a long history all over the world, than there are about natural building and Bale building. So if you do get interested in this particular type of work, the resources out there are amazing. Yeah. So we're gonna see how it's firmed up and see if there's some areas that are capable of being worked on a little bit more. I think the workshop's for till 3, so we have a bit of time to play with what we've already done and try to smooth out those marks a little bit. We can try with a sponge, we can try with a trowel, and just kind of get some experience finishing what we've done in there. And also in the areas where we have no plaster, you can continue working and putting on that plaster. If we're ready to finish it a bit more, we want to be able to not push it in, but you want to be able to push your nail in. So you can't push your flat finger in, but if you can push your nail in and create a mark, we're at the right stage. So some of this is ready to go. So we just want to, yep, I can't push my fingers in and make a dip, but I can put my fingernail in. So that means it's at the right stage to still be able to be manipulated and smoothed. And we can hit it with the same tools that we had. These aren't ideal. Like I said, I like to work with a little bit softer plastic trowel, but this is what we have and you can make it work. That's the nice thing about this. And what we want to do is on the areas where it feels firm but not dry, it's ready to go, so you can see what that feels like.
And we're going to go with more of these rounded
Yeah.
trowels for that.
Yeah, because the square-edged ones you can really dig in. But what we want to do is just kind of just smooth and take those trowel marks out, get pressure, and then you can even, guide with the bigger trowels and apply pressure with both hands if you need to. Some material will fall out, and it is harder to work on a bumpy wall, for sure. And again, you want to keep that nice and clean and just kind of smooth out some of these areas. If it is too firm, where's my water bottle? If it is too firm, just hit it with a little dash of water, and then you can come in and do that. And
Same with a sponge too.
yeah, so the sponge is what we like to use for exterior, and you can certainly use it for the interior as well. In order to match what we have, we want to trowel it, but you can also use a sponge to it's a slightly different texture than what we've got here, but it works also. And you just take that wet sponge, massage it around, and get it to the level of comfort of the surface that you're looking for. Once you go over it with the sponge, let it dry a little bit more, come back with a drier sponge and just knock back all the loose material. So that's the process with this. But like I said, in this interior, we're looking for something not so sandy. If you come and work on the outside, we will be using the sponge finish. But here we're going to use what we have. It's a make it work moment with more of the rounded trowels. And these are a lot firmer than I would normally recommend, but this is what we have. Get that, make sure that's clean.
Laura, do you want the outside to be a little rougher than the inside?
Yes, you want a rougher texture. And we're just, again, using a small portion of this, adding extra pressure, and taking those trowel marks from the initial application down. Spritz it as needed with the water, and just, now is the time you can start to pet it. It's not going to fall apart. So, and make sure you're keeping your tools clean when you're doing this. You don't want to smooth it. You won't be able to smooth it if you have material on your trowel. So constantly, I usually work with like a sponge in one hand and a wet sponge and just wipe down the trowel. Keep it up, keep it up. So jump in and give that a go.
Yeah, and actually just one little announcement, since we do have additional plaster mixed up, what we can do is let folks who want to get a chance to
try the finishes
try
here.
to smooth it out, we'll do that.
And then if you want to do
wants
more,
to stay,
you can go up
longer,
here.
we'll use this up, so it's we'll get all that we have on the walls.
But I did want, before we ended, to have some people try to finish it, and then we'll see where it goes. You can come practice the initial application, and if it doesn't get knocked back today, spray it, and we'll have the crew do it tomorrow. So wherever we get to, it's workable. And if you do get some on your hands, we have vinegar water here. That'll neutralize everything. So jump in with the round. Make sure they're nice and clean. Just dip them in the bucket. And again, just using that one leading edge, that small part, you can add your extra pressure from your hand and just start working the surface to take out the marks. So before you start on an area, see if it's firm enough, but and it's good to go. Yep. Yep. So want to keep it a little more flat, right, and just kind of drag it and smooth. Yeah.
Keep patting it.
Yeah. And just kind of take more of the ridges out. Yeah. See how that comes? Yeah. And you don't have to work it too much. We do have a bumpy surface. So we just want to level it out and not have edges. We don't want edges, but it can be a little bit irregular because we're working with an irregular substrate.